So hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today in this video we are going on with the JavaScript series, and we are continuing our JavaScript series. And in the previous video I've taught you about document object model, browser object model, and window object model. So we've studied about them, and I've given you a brief introduction about DOM manipulation as well. I told you what is the DOM tree, I told you about text node, element node, comment node, and I even taught you about browser autocorrect. So today in this video we're going to be learning about how we can actually use document object model manipulation in order to manipulate the document in our HTML. So first of all, I'll go and simply open up Visual Studio Code, and this is the part of chapter 5. Chapter 5 is not complete yet. We've just simply studied about the browser features in the previous video. We have not written any kind of codes. So today we are going to be writing codes. So first thing first, let me go ahead and teach you, give you a little bit brief introduction again about DOM manipulation. So DOM manipulation, basically, what do we know about DOM first? So the first thing that we know about DOM is DOM stands for document object model, and DOM is basically the HTML file that has been converted into a object in JavaScript. Now everything in JavaScript is an object. Now this document is in the form of a object. Now these objects can be accessed and can be changed. So if we change the document using JavaScript, it is known as DOM manipulation. That is how we define document manipulation in JavaScript. Yep, that is what it is. I've given you a brief introduction about this one. Now we're starting to write the code. So first, what are we going to do? We are going to go ahead and target this heading one. Let's take an example over here. Suppose I want to target the heading one. Now what do? I simply want to change this content of this. I want to change the content to be something like welcome to the web page. I don't want to say hello world to the user. So what do I do in that situation? So if we are in that situation, we are simply going to use DOM manipulation. So first, how can I target this one? So to change the content, we first need to target the element that we're going to change. So I'll target heading 1. I can write anything. I can write a heading name over here. This is just a variable. So to target that, we're going to go ahead and call document. So this document is basically an object that we get. This document is the object. This is the object. Okay, you see right over here, this HTML file, this has been converted. This has been broken down into some properties of an object. This head over this body's also been broken down and set up as properties in JavaScript. So these properties are inside of the document. So I'll call document, and I have different kinds of method over here. So what are the different kinds of methods? So the different kinds of methods that we have in JavaScript are get element, and we see all of these over here. We see get animation, get elements by get element by ID, get elements by class name. Remember these names, okay? Be careful while you're working with them, because if you don't know the uses of that, you will be stuck in a situation where you cannot escape. So the first thing that we are going to target is this h1 element. To target this h1 element, we are going to use get elements by tag name. So we're going to be using that, and we're going to go ahead and grab the h1. So we don't need to write anything in front or besides this one. We just need to type in the tag name. So after we've typed the tag name, I'll console.log heading 1, and if I go into the browser, let me go live. Okay, I don't want to use this web browser. I want to use this one here. Okay, now if I inspect and if I go into the console, you can see a HTML collection. Now why is this a HTML collection? It is because we are grabbing the elements. We are not grabbing the singular, or we are not grabbing the individual element. Whatever. Okay, I'll give you just a little bit of example over here. So you might not be using heading 1 in your application just once. You might be using heading 1 twice, thrice, or many times as you want, but I guess it should be less than 6, but less than or equals to 6. So let's take an example. You've used 3 heading 1 in your web page. Now, if you're using this get elements by tag name, you're gonna get 3 of those heading 1s that you've used in the web page. So that is why it is inside of the HTML collection. So how do we access the individual? So we know that this HTML collection is just like an array over here. Now this array has a key. So this key is basically the index. So we can access this by using out the index and saying h1 0. We can see that we get a h1. Now this h1 is also a object. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? Okay, I'll make you believe me. So I'll say type of, and if I say type of h1, it says it's an object. So believe me, everything in JavaScript is an object. So h1, and inside of the h1 we see that there are bunch of stuff, bunch of nonsense stuff, bunch of useful stuff, bunch of stuff that we need. So these are all the useful stuff. These are not nonsense, okay? So these are used. So now the main thing that we're going to focus is on the hello world text over here. So I said that we want to change this to welcome to the web page. So how do we change that? So there are many ways that we can manipulate that. So the first way that we can manipulate is we can simply go ahead and say remove this console log, and if I go and say dot first child dot, and inside of the first child we have something called data. Now this data, we can change this to welcome to the web page. Now if I do that, we can see now this data, this content has been changed to welcome to the web page. Now how did I change that? So first I'll give you a little bit introduction. So if I say console.log and heading 1, now inside of the heading 1 we see that there are different kind of properties. So the first property that we have is first child. Now this first child is a text node, and inside of the text node we have something called data. So this data is containing all of the data that we have within this text node. So that is how we can access this. And there is another thing as well, which has the text content. So if we have anything that is related to the text, this is going to be inside of the text context. So instead of using that, we can go ahead and say h1 0. Instead of using the first child, we can go for text content is equals to the same as this one. And yep, now if we go, we can see that this says welcome to the web page. Now there's something more. There's something more we can do. So what is it we can do? We can go and see it in the h1 as well. So in the h1, we can see that this outer text is over here. So outer text basically means that what is outside of this heading 1. So okay, outer text, let me go ahead and explain you. So in this heading 1, so this is a heading 1 right over we see. So now inside of the heading 1, what do we have? We have a hello world. Now this hello world is a text node, and what is outside of the text node? We have welcome to the web page, right? So this is going to go ahead and give you as the outer text, and instead of outer text we have inner text as well. So see, we have inner text and we have last child, and inside of the last child we have the data. So we can manipulate it many ways, but the most thing that we use in JavaScript is simply h1 0 dot inner text is welcome to the web page. So we can say that to the user right now, and if I go ahead and see, we can see, oh wait, why didn't this change? I think that it should have changed. This is going to go and oh, inner text. This is inner text. So we can see that welcome to the web page has been written and has been displayed over here. Now I've taught you about this. How can we change the text? Now, how can we manipulate the HTML inside of certain stuff? So let me go ahead and create a div over here. So inside of the div, I create a paragraph and I'll say this is a paragraph. Now it'll display us this is a paragraph. Now inside a paragraph, let me add a span over here and I'll say this is a span. This is a span as well. Now I've done that. Now we can see that it says this is a span as well. Now the thing that I want is I want to access this div and I want to manipulate this HTML. Let's say that I want to go ahead and add some more stuff towards this. I want to add more stuff in this div. So how can I add that? So to add that, we're simply gonna go ahead and use something called, we're gonna use something like, let's go for an example. We can go for const div is equals to document.get element by name. We can go for name as well. It's going to be element name, so this element name is going to be let's go for div, and now we can go ahead and console.log div and at the 0 index. So at the 0 index it says this is undefined, but what if I go ahead and say console.log div? So it's going to give me a node list, and this node list is going to be an empty node list. Why is this empty? Because this get elements by name is not applicable using this div. So I just simply made a mistake over here. It's going to be tag name. I'm going to be explaining about this name as well, but we need to focus on tag name here now. So we can see div, and I'll go for this one. Now in the 0 index we see a div over here. Now in the inner, we're going to be focusing on the HTML content. So HTML content is going to be inside of the inner HTML here. So I want to go and add something to this one. To add something to this inner HTML, what are we going to do? We are simply going to go and do something like div.inner HTML. Now if we simply go ahead and say equals to and a bunch of stuff that we need to write, we don't need to do that. If you do that, all those, this span and this paragraph are going to be removed, and I don't want them to be removed. I want them to stay. So how do I make them stay? By simply saying div.h plus equals to. So this is a plus equals to operator. That means add something into the string. So I'll add some more. Let's go ahead and say a heading 3. I'll have to write HTML over here, heading 3, and I'll say, whoa, I got added here using JS. Now if I go, I need to close this over here, so I'll say h3, and yep, if I save this, I'll see that when I refresh, wait, let me see in the div. Oh, it's actually 0 index, so it's gonna work now, I promise you. Yep, whoa, I got added using JavaScript here. So that is how cool it is to work with JavaScript DOM manipulation. So now we've studied about how can we target using the tag name. So this is not only going to be applicable while you're working, so this is most rarely used. So we're going to be looking at other stuff as well. So first thing, I'll give you an example, or I'll give you a test. Okay, let's say that I don't want to just, I have more than let's say more than 3 divs in my application in this web page. Now I have more than 3 divs. Now is it possible for me to access all of those divs using tag name, and we have to go into each of the individual indexes? No, right? That is just some monotonous work that we have to do. So in order to escape that, we simply use something as ID and classes. So let's I'll give you an example here. I'll go for a class of okay, instead of giving a class to this, I'll give a class to this one. So I'll say class, I'll say para. and now I'm going to go use lorem over here. So I say lorem 332, let's go for 32 words. Now after I've given that, I need to copy this again, or maybe instead of copying, I'll simply go for para and lorem 45. I'll create another one as well over here so that it is going to be easy for us to work with. So p dot, we can go for para as well, lorem 43. Now I've done that. Now let's say that I want to access this class name over here. So we can access this class name using this tag name, or we can access this paragraph using the tag name, but this tag name, I want to access only those tags which have the class of para. So how do I do that? So to basically do that, we are simply going to go and grab those using the get elements by class name. So if I say const para is going to be document.get oh, it's not document, it's document or get elements by class name. Now this is going to grab the elements, not a singular, not an individual element. This is going to grab all of the elements which have the class name of para. And if I console.log a para, we're going to see that HTML collection has been printed. Now this HTML collection is an object which has the key of 0, 1, 2. Now we can access this using the key over here. If I say 0, you can see that class para has been here. And so now we can actually change the class name of this one as well. So how can we change the class name of this para? How can we change that? So to change the class name or whatever you want, we can simply go for para. We see over here in this para, we have all of those stuff over here. So these are the properties. Now I want to focus on the property which has the class list, and inside of the class list we can append something. So this class list is a DOM list token. Now I can convert this into an array and I can append stuff to it. So I'll teach you about array.append today. So first, let me go ahead and create an array. So first I'll say const para1 is equals to array.from, and I want to go ahead and access the para0 dot class list. Now this class list, and if I go ahead and console.log para1, I can see that this is an array. So this array has para over here. Now I want to go and change this. I want to go ahead and add a certain kind of list to it. So instead of making it a array here, we could have simply used some basic knowledge of JavaScript over here. So we could have simply said, instead of writing all of that, all of this stuff right over here, we could go ahead and use class list dot append, and we can append some class to it. So let's append a, okay, let's go for selected. Now it's gonna go ahead and append is not a function because, yep, that is the thing. I need to go ahead and convert this into an array.from. And then what do? I need to go ahead and console this one as well. So if I instead of adding this append over here, we can simply say class list, uniform class list, and go for append. I'll go for a on caught array.form.append is not a function. Why? Because this is a, okay, never mind. We can go for something like const para1 as well. So now we can add this. Now we can use the para1 dot or we can add some new elements. So how can we add some new elements into the array? I want to go ahead and push this. Instead of using this append, we need to use something called push. So we are going to push selected here. Now I want to push something. I can go, if I go say console.log para1, okay, para1, I can see that selected is also there. So that means we can go and use this push here instead of using this append stuff that we have. So instead of going for para1, we can go for para0 dot class list dot push. I don't push. Why is this not a function? Why is this not a function? Let me just go ahead and console.log. You can see a DOM token list has been present over here. Now this property has add function. Oh, that means this is, oh, I was basically being a fool. So this is not a stuff, this is not an array, this is simply, this has simply an own function which says add, and I can add selected over here. So now if we go and console log the parameter 0 dot class list, we can see that para and selected has been printed. So that means we can simply use class list dot add to append a class to this one. So let's say that I want to go for a specific item over here, specific item, we can go for selected, and I want to change the color of the selected text. So I want to go and say, we can go for okay, yeah, we can go for another. So I'll say const para1 is equals to document dot get element by class name. I'll go for the selected because this has been already given by JavaScript. So para1 at the 0 index, I want to go ahead and go for style dot color is equals to, let's go for red. Yep, we can see that this color has been changed into red. So this is how we can use document.getElement by class name. And now there's another more stuff to it. So we're going to be learning about ID. So how can we grab the elements using ID? So to grab the elements using ID, it is really simple. So instead of using, this is a span as well, I'll go for lorem and I'll go for 345, whatever we want. And this is a long text over here. So I want to give it an ID of text. Now this has the unique identifier. So if you've learned CSS, and if you haven't learned CSS, please go ahead and learn it. And if you have learned CSS, you know that this is a unique identifier. Now for those of you who don't know CSS, I'll simply explain it to you. Now class can be used as a identifier which can be given to anyone. So class is basically like your home. Okay, let's take an example of class. So let's take an example, you study in class 9, and now in class 9 there are different kinds of student, right? So there are different kinds of student, but what if I say class 9? You don't know class 9 is a class. Whose student are you talking about? So to actually go ahead and talk about the individual student, we take the ID. So the ID that you have in your identification card, that is the ID that we require. So just take an example of your real life, okay? So that is what IDs are for. So let me go ahead and grab the text here. So const text is equals to document dot get element by ID, and I'll grab the ID which is text. So this is not elements. You remember this or not, you notice this or not, this is not elements, this is a singular element. So that is why we're using element, because we cannot give this text to anyone else rather than a single element. So if I console.log the text over here, we can see that a node, oh, this is not a node, we have a element over here. So this element is a span, and in the span we have inner HTML and all of those. So I want to go ahead and change the styling of this. So how do I change that? To change the styling, I can simply go for a text.color dot text.style.color. Color is equals to, let's go for blue. So now if I do that, we can see that this text color has been changed to blue. So that is how cool it is working with JavaScript and this targeting elements. So there's more, okay? There's one more, and that is what I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to end this video because this video is getting long and I don't want to make you feel bored, okay? Too much learning for one day is not good. So first thing first, what are we gonna do? Is we're gonna go and learn about query selectors. So these query selectors can select anything, can select a element, can select a class, can select a ID as well. So how can we use those query selectors? To use those query selectors, we simply go for a variable. Let's take const, and then okay, let me just go ahead and remove this. Let me go ahead and comment this one out. Let's say that I want to go ahead and grab the class name of paragraph. So how can we actually access the class name of paragraph using query selectors? So query selector is kind of unique in itself. So we can go ahead and say para is equals to document.query selector. Now query selector actually selects the first element. The first element which has the class name para, we're going to select that. So to select this one, we're simply going to go ahead and say query selector, and then we're going to go, what do I want to select? I want to select a class, so I'll give a dot. So this is the identifier for a class, and I'll say para. Then if I go and say console.log para, and I'll see that we can see a class para, and this is para is pointing at the first element. So that is what query selector does. And now there's another stuff called query selector all. So I'll go for const paras is equals to document dot query selector all. So query selector all is selecting all of those elements which have the class name of para. So now if I go ahead and console log paras, I can see that it's a node list, and inside of the node list we have all of these elements here. So now I want to access these elements and I want to change the color. I want this color, this first color, to be red. I want this second color to be cyan or any color, and I want this to be brown. So how do I do that? So to do that, in this query selector all, we know that this query selector all is basically like an array. So it's basically like an array, so we can run a for loop here. So run a for loop, so we know that this is an object, okay? In object we can use for in loop to get the keys. So we are not gonna do that here. We are simply gonna use the normal for loop. So let's go for let I is equals to 0 and I is less than the pers dot length, and then I want to increment the I by 1. And if I do that, and let's say that I want to go ahead and change this color, so I want to go for paras and the index dot style dot color. So by default at front this is going to go ahead and say 0, and it's going to be style color, and I want the 0 to be red. And then I'll go for a if statement. I'll say if the index is equals to 1, then I want to go ahead and change paras and index dot style dot color is equals to, let's go for cyan, and we can go for another if statement over here, an if statement. If now let's go for I is equals to 2, then what should we do? So I'll go for paras and I'll go for I, and the same stuff over here. So I'll go for style and I'll go for color is equals to brown. Now why are we using if and why aren't we using else if here? So now what are we talking about is we're simply going to go ahead and check. So this is going to go ahead and check if this is true, and if this comes true, and if you're using if else if over here, so it's just simply gonna go ahead and reject this. It's not going to be executed. Okay, so for that reason I'm using if to actually get our app working. And in our app we can see that we have successfully printed out, we've successfully changed the color using the for loop in JavaScript. So that is how we can use query selector all, and that is how we can manipulate the DOM using JavaScript. So in the next video I'm going to be teaching you more about DOM manipulation, but this is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe the YouTube channel, and don't forget to join the Discord server and support our group. This is a organization, this is non-profitable organization. This is Code Enthusiastic. We have 3 of the members, and one of the member is me, and the second member is Aditya and Arun. I've given the given their channels in the link description below. You need to subscribe them and join our Discord server if you need any kind of help. And saying this much, I'd like to end this video. Till then, take care everyone, and goodbye.